Hello Internet, it's Daniel with Driving and Dragons. Today let's talk about 5 of the most annoying players that you can pick up in tabletop role playing. See you on the other side. 5 players. Are they the most annoying? Maybe not overall. There's plenty of annoying player types out there. Right now 5 seems a good number, and these are the player types that irritate me the most at this point in time. When I say player types, I'm talking about an overarching archetype of why they approach the table and how they approach the game. And with the exception of one, these are more of a nuisance and something that can be adjusted, and a lot of times can just become something fun at the table, something that everybody kind of laughs at a little bit or has a chuckle on the side about, oh, here comes John, you know what he's like again. Only one of them is truly, truly bad in all forms, in my opinion. Today we're also focusing predominantly on the current meta. Most people these days are starting to scrounge together their groups out of Facebook pages and out of Reddit threads and Discord servers. They're not really picking up their just a group of buddies anymore. That said, you could uncover just about every one of these from a friend of yours, and in a lot of cases you're not going to know. Half the fun's going to be decided, oh, you know, I didn't realize that Johnny over here was going to be a min-maxer. Yeah, there's going to be some that are a little more obvious. You know, we all know that that guy over there is going to end up being kind of a neck-bearded grognard, but, you know, for the most part, you don't know if these are going to pop up. So let's start off now with the first one. This is going to be the only one that I find as a true negative that's not as lighthearted as the others in this video, and that is the activist player. The activist player is toxic to the hobby, derails pretty much everything that goes on, and is just a general nuisance that really needs to be excised from the hobby. People need to understand, they need to come to the realization that everything in their life does not need to be a vehicle for whatever their personal pet project is or their pet whipping post. And this is where the activist player becomes a problem. They see everything in life as a vehicle for whatever it is that they've decided to dedicate themselves to. It's sad because a lot of times your activist player has a different cause that they're dedicated to every other month, but you know, it doesn't matter if it's environmentalism, it doesn't matter if it's the alphabet mafia, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, a hatred for capitalism or a hatred for communism or a particular political candidate or religion. All that matters is, to the activist player, the game is just a vehicle to proselytize and preach at the rest of the group. This is not a character who has a theme woven through or who's trying to represent an experience that they could live out in a new way or explore. This is literally somebody this is always ham-fisted, and this is a player who is constantly taking the game as a way to ramrod their beliefs down everybody else's throat, and it is incredibly annoying. It is a thief of joy and robs the fun of the game for just about everybody. There's pretty much no way to turn it into one of those things that we all just kind of giggle and laugh about. And then what's worse is a lot of times it kills good conversation and good threads and whatnot in groups, because you'll have a Facebook group that's maybe trying to discuss something important in the gaming community or a gaming related thing, and here comes the activist who turns it into their pet project, derails the entire thing. It becomes a political, hypercharged social culture war thread, and even if they don't want to, the admins in the group end up having no choice but to shut it down because they don't want their group to get deleted because of the content that's in it, because of whatever people are arguing about. And that comes because the activist player cannot help themselves. They absolutely must latch on to and use whatever vehicle they can to drive home whatever their pet cause is. Number 2, the grognard player. Yes, the grognard player can be just as destructive as the activist in his worst form, because the grognard is the ultimate gatekeeper. Literally, you are not nerdy enough to be in the nerd game type. The super neckbeard. Mr. Actually. He is entertaining in some ways. He's a step below that guy that we all know, but he takes the stereotype of the tabletop role-playing gamer being a social reject with very limited interpersonal skills, and he takes it a little bit to an extreme. He is the guy who always shows up with some really cool character idea, and the air quotes around cool, because he's the only one who seems to think it's that way. The grognard can be annoying because he often goes off onto, he'll take jokes too far. He'll stretch them beyond where they need to. He will have ideas where he just tries to take something that's cool and he takes it too far, and everybody just kind of rolls their eyes and is like, Jesus, this again. That's what makes him annoying. He can actually be a lovable friend to the rest of the group. A good friend of mine when I was younger was actually far and away the grognard of our group, and the thing that always makes me remember it is we did an Oriental Adventures Dungeons and Dragons campaign one time, and I had a blind samurai monk, and I had a guy who had a really cool idea, and my best friend was like, I'm going to be a displaced Spartan. I'm going to be like a Spartan warrior who is in this Oriental culture, who's got the culture shock and everything is really cool. And this guy, he wanted to be a ninja, and he was everything a ninja wasn't supposed to be. It was like straight out of some kind of stupid anime. And we had this picture where there's the blind samurai sitting there. He's like, I'm blind. And the Spartan is standing there not understanding. This guy's like, don't look at me. I'm just a regular commoner. Oh yeah, ninja. This guy is annoying. It's like, you take a cool idea and you ruin it by taking it too far, and then you act like a jackass because you have no social skills when people kind of point it out to you. So the grognard, kind of annoying. You can handle him, but he gets to be a bit of a pain in the butt from time to time, just because he's that social incompetence just leads him to take everything a little bit too far, a little bit too much of a good thing. Next is what I like to call the rules law student. So that's number 3, the rules law student, or the rules paralegal. Now you might say, why am I not saying the rules lawyer? Well, the rules lawyer, if you're really going to go by what they are, is not as annoying as you'd think. Because the rules lawyer is somebody who generally has a deep understanding of the rules, can be very useful because you can almost use them as a reference, and sometimes you can bounce ideas off of them. They're not that big of a deal. And as long as you make the case properly, you can usually trust where they're going. The rules law student or the rules paralegal is more like the in-game equivalent of that person who Googled the just law on a particular state code and now somehow thinks that they're a lawyer and that they're a judge and that they have a deep understanding of the law. They've read one sentence out of a law that's 4 pages long, and they take it totally out of context and think they know what the law is. That person. This is the in-game equivalent of the guy who took 3 courses of pre-law in undergraduate college that he didn't finish and thinks he is a lawyer. This game player comes into the game and thinks that his character can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and then you look at it and you're like, that's not how any of this stuff works. Oh, but the description said this, that, and the other. No, that's not how any of this works. This is the guy who comes in with a rogue fighter who has like a 45 AC, and you're like, that's not right. And it's like, well, this doesn't stack, this doesn't stack, this doesn't stack. None of this stuff works together. Well, maybe I could shift it this way and then it could work. It's like, no, it doesn't work. The rules law student is a person who goes in and picks and chooses little pieces and a few sentences of the rules and tries to stack them together to gain an unfair advantage or a broken character. They're annoying because they don't even take the time necessary to become like a power gamer to really figure out how things work, so they can at least have like a well, rules is written argument to make for why their character should work. Literally, they glance over the short synopsis of rules to come up with a character idea that doesn't really work, and it gets annoying because then they bog down the game because you have to explain to them how their entire character concept doesn't work. And usually this happens like 2 or 3 sessions in, because the worst thing about the old rules law student is when you first look at their character sheet, barring something crazy like the dude who has 40 AC and you're like, that's not how that works. 9 times out of 10, it's not immediately obvious. It just kind of looks like a regular character. And then you take a couple of seconds and look deeper and you're like, hold on a second. You're game session in and this guy's trying to throw harpoons at a dragon and drag the dragon out of the sky based on a grapple bonus, thinking he can stack grapple bonuses by chucking 4 and 5 and 6 harpoons up there and have a plus 30 grapple against the flying dragon. And you have to disavow him of this notion that he doesn't understand how the rules work. Derails the whole game, becomes very annoying because a lot of times now his character is just total trash. Just a really bad idea of things that don't work, and he's so far behind the curve to everybody else that he almost has to go roll a new character to even be worth keeping at the table, and it's annoying. It's easily can be easily handled, but it gets annoying. Number 4 is the min-maxer. The min-maxer is this player, and I'm talking about not somebody who does some min-maxing. I'm talking a player who is specifically a min-maxer. This is junior grade power gaming. I don't feel like taking all the time to really learn how to make a super strong character class with a lot of powerful abilities. So what do? Brute force. I focus everything on one thing by minimizing everything else. They are going to take advantage of any rule where they can trade off everything else to power up one thing. They are going to be radically unbalanced. They're annoying for a game master more than anything else because they make game design a pain in the ass. They make adventure design a pain in the ass because now you have to kind of play around your min-maxer. Meaning that if you have a min-maxer who's like the classic example of an AC monkey, and the issue comes in that because he is so bad at everything else that a lot of times you have to temper other challenges to where he's not going to just be so useless that he can't even get to the next section of the adventure, but at the same time you have to turn around and temper combat encounters, for instance, to be able to deal with this guy who has this super high AC. Otherwise, he's going to unbalance the encounter, and it can rob everybody's fun because when you're playing in his wheelhouse, he's the automatic star and nobody else really gets to do much of anything. But when you're outside of his wheelhouse, he's actually an anchor on the rest of the group because his mins are so bad that his max doesn't make up for it. And he just becomes very flat, very two-dimensional. And because I'm talking about a min-maxer as the player and not as the character, you can guarantee that every time he gets a new character, it's going to be on the same problem. He's going to max something else, and it's just going to be the same issue in another place. And if you're playing one of these campaigns where you're like me and you have no problems killing a player, and you're like, okay, that player's dead, so we're going to bring back a new character. Well, he's just going to bring back a different character that's min-maxed in another way. And now all of the adventure that I've prepped ahead of time has to be revised. Because now instead of me having to prep for this guy who is just a monster burst damage character, all of a sudden he's like a super skill magnet that has all kinds of out of combat skills and is almost worthless in combat. And I've balanced my game to have this death machine in the middle of the group. Now I got to rebalance my entire adventure around this guy. I've got to make that adaptation. Much better for people to just have balanced characters, but the min-maxer can be pretty annoying because that's the way they got to do it. And then last but not least is Lazy Bones, number 5. We've all met him. Lazy Bones comes in a lot of different flavors. Maybe Lazy Bones just sees the game as a social thing. It's kind of a excuse to get together with the buddies and kind of party like poker night. Doesn't really care so much about the game. It could be movie night, it could be poker night, it could be just having some beers and chilling, it could be grilling out. It just happens to be tabletop role-playing games. So he's not really vested. Or it could just be a guy who just doesn't want to put in any effort. He kind of wants to play the game, but his character sheet is never ready. He never has his dice together. He doesn't know what's going on with his character. He doesn't understand his abilities, and you told him 2 or 3 times. He doesn't pay attention to what's going on in the game. He doesn't pay attention to combat. He doesn't know what skills he has or what he can focus on. He doesn't remember stuff that the party picked up in the rest of the adventure because he's not paying attention. Lazy Bones has a very lazy approach to playing the game. And he's annoying because everybody's having to stop, break the immersion, catch him up. Everybody's having to stop. We're all ready to play, and we're going to spend the first hour leveling his character up because he doesn't have any idea what he wants to do. He didn't bother to do it after the last session because we're not playing right now, so why am I going to bust my books out and do it? He doesn't ever have the right dice ready. He doesn't ever have his stuff set aside. He doesn't remember what plus and minuses he has. He doesn't remember if he got advantage or disadvantage from earlier in the round. He just is lazy in the way he plays the game, and whether that's because he just kind of sees it as a social event, or whether he sees it as a, just kind of not serious, or whether he's just lazy like that, just really shouldn't play the game, because he should play video games almost exclusively, because then he can only piss himself off. Regardless of what the case is, Lazy Bones can be obnoxious because he's just gobbling up everybody else's time. So that's my 5. The Activist, the only real bad one. The Grognard, the Rules Law Student, the Min-Maxer, and the Lazy Bones. You tell me what your most annoying character type is, or really your most annoying player type is, down in the comment section below. I'll see you guys next time.